Welcome to the GFG Guys quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and in today's episode, you're going to get tuned in to the best foods that fight fat. Now, I used to be that active athlete and fitness enthusiast you'd find diving into hamburger, french fries, and energy drinks because, after all, if you're exercising hard, you can stuff anything into your gaping maw and subsequently burn it off, right? But over the past several years, I've realized there's just a smarter way to do things, and there's actually three crucial concepts that come to play when choosing the way that you're going to eat. And the fact is, no matter how fit you are, you'll never have abs you can see or rippling muscles unless you eat right. So, in today's episode, I'm going to teach you how. Let's begin with three crucial food and fat loss concepts. Crucial concept 1, certain types of foods can cause inflammation. The inflammation can cause insulin insensitivity, among a host of other chronic diseases. And one particularly annoying byproduct of this inflammation is fat deposition, chronic fatigue, poor performance, and weight gain. Got it? Okay, crucial concept 2. Almost every person on the planet has some kind of food intolerance or food sensitivity. That's just based on your genetics, your blood, environment, all sorts of different factors. Now, if these aren't taken into consideration, the result is a compromised immune system, a missed training day, bloating, gas, and once again, resistance to fat loss and a propensity for weight gain. And then crucial concept 3, your body can only handle a finite amount of preservatives, genetically modified foods, artificial sweeteners, toxins, and foreign objects before it develops a toxin overload, which sometimes manifests itself as sickness, sometimes as hardened arteries, sometimes as cancer, and sometimes as the deposition of new fat cells to store those toxins. So let's delve a bit deeper into these concepts and develop a practical solution to tackle them. Crucial concept 1, recall that involves inflammation. So foods that cause a hyperglycemic response or a quick release of blood sugar are some of the most notorious for inflammation, like muffins, cookies, juices, scones, biscotti, pasta, baked goods. You get the idea. Any sugar that's refined or processed and also low in fiber, these are also called acellular carbohydrates. They fall into that inflammation camp. So you're going to want to limit those. They're basically going to cause a response of your body's what are called eicosanoids and cytokines and production of arachidonic acid, all of which get triggered by high blood sugar and high insulin levels. Now, the result of constantly high circulating blood sugar levels is a resistance to insulin, one of your body's most important hormones you've no doubt heard of before, and the hormone responsible for delivering sugars into your muscles to be stored as energy. As your body becomes less sensitive to or resistant to insulin, you're less likely to take up stored sugars for use during exercise and more likely to leave those sugars circulating in the bloodstream where they're eventually dumped off into the liver and converted into fats. The conversion of the sugar into fat can cause high blood triglycerides and high levels of something called small oxidized cholesterol, dangerous form of cholesterol, especially for anyone concerned about cardiovascular health. Another result of this hyperglycemia is something called leptin resistance. Now, leptin is one of your body's primary appetite-regulating hormones, and you become insensitive to your body's cries to stop eating or feel full, and you get carb cravings and weight gain as a result. And then finally, your immune system becomes activated into a hyper-alert state due to the chronic state of inflammation from hyperglycemia and high circulating insulin levels. This means you get sicker much easier when you're exposed to germs. And then finally, when the extremely high blood sugar levels finally are controlled by an overproduction of insulin, there's typically a subsequent sharp drop in blood sugar levels, also known as hypoglycemia. So you get chronic fatigue and a slump in energy. So let's review. Refined sugars, especially those low in fiber, can cause hyperglycemia. Hyperglycemia causes a chronic inflammatory state. Inflammation causes an unstable appetite, low energy storage levels, frequent episodes of sickness, cardiovascular disease, and weight gain. And as if that weren't enough, these foods can result in the creation of tiny electrons that wreak havoc on normal cellular metabolism. These little guys, called free radicals, are highly inflammatory as well. So what can you do about this? Well, the solution is twofold. solution number one is, of course, to emphasize low glycemic index carbs that don't spike the blood sugar. That should be a no-brainer, and there's a big list of them over at glycemicindex.com. Some of the top-ranked low glycemic index carbohydrates that should be your high-priority picks for maintaining your body's storage carbohydrate levels without the steep rise in insulin and subsequent inflammation would be things like lentils and chickpeas, preferably soaked or sprouted. Milk, like organic milk, rice milk, coconut milk, goat's milk, etc. Yogurt, plain yogurt, please, not the stuff with the fruit in the bottom. Nuts and nut butters. Mushrooms, onions, tomatoes, and just about any low-starch vegetable. And then there are other energy-dense carbohydrate sources that are not quite low glycemic, but still better than things like biscotti and scones and pasta. We're talking about things like sweet potatoes, parsnips, carrots, yams, beets, quinoa, amaranth, millet, squash, pumpkin. You get the idea. Okay, solution number two is to consume an anti-inflammatory diet. My fellow Quick and Dirty Tips podcaster, the Nutrition Diva, actually has a great website devoted to this, and I'll link to that website in the show notes. Just go to quickanddirtytips.com, and you're going to want to look for the show notes to this episode that you're listening to right now. And the number for this episode you're listening to right now is 332. So I'll link over to that anti-inflammatory website that the Nutrition Diva maintains. But here are a couple of quick and dirty tips on an anti-inflammatory diet. Number one is to consume a high amount of omega-3 fatty acids. They're important because about 100 years ago, the process of removing oils from vegetables and seeds actually changed. It changed to something called screw nut expelling. And while this allowed a more industrial mass extraction of oils and things like corn and sunflower and safflower and peanuts, it also destroyed much of the valuable omega-3 fatty acid content and concentrated much of the omega-6 fatty acid content. And that's a bad thing, as I'll explain shortly. In addition, farming practices have evolved to give animal diets and mass-produced feed that's high in omega-6 fatty acids, but low in omega-3s. Even fish raised on fish farms is pretty low in omega-3s, since farm feed doesn't provide the omega-3 rich phytoplankton that wild fish can eat. Now, as if that weren't enough, food manufacturers have figured out that omega-3s reduce the shelf life of a food product. So many packaged and processed foods have had their omega-3s purposefully removed. And the process of fat hydrogenation for making convenient foods like margarine and cream cheese instantly destroys the omega-3s. Any packaged foods needs hydrogenated fats to actually last long enough to make it into your cupboard. So why are these bad things? Well, in Japanese studies, a direct correlation has been observed between omega-3 fatty acid deficiencies, increased consumption of omega-6 fatty acids, and a rise in Western degenerative diseases and illnesses, over 50 of those illnesses, in fact. And omega-6 fatty acids promote inflammation in the body, which you just learned about. Omega-3 fatty acids, on the other hand, are anti-inflammatory and support healthy heart, brain, nerve, and eye function. Unfortunately, the current ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids in the typical American diet is anywhere from 10 to 1 to 20 to 1, when it should be closer to 4 to 1. So check the nutrition labels of most foods that you eat, and you'll find omega-6 rich sources like sunflower and safflower and peanut and corn oil. In just a 3-week period of time, omega-3 fatty acids have been observed to cause a 2-pound increase in completely fat-free lean muscle with no other dietary changes, as opposed to all the inflammation caused by excessive omega-6 fatty acids. So the only exception to the elimination of omega-3 fatty acids in most foods you're going to find out there is the very small amounts of omega-3s found in vegetables, seaweed, and some nuts and seeds. You can get more highly concentrated omega-3 sources, however, in things like grass-fed beef and wild-caught fish. Okay, so that's one thing, is to consume a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, so what's the second thing that you can do to make sure that you're getting food that actually burns fat? Well, it's to optimize fiber. Fiber helps to fight inflammation, and the nutrients like anthocyanins and polyphenols and fiber-rich foods like dark vegetables and fruits can fight inflammation too. So what are some of my favorites? Well, number one would be blue and purple foods. Blue and purple hues in foods are due primarily to their anthocyanin content. We're talking blueberries, blackberries, prunes, plums, pomegranates, eggplant. You get the idea. Number two would be green foods because the natural plant pigment chlorophyll is great for metabolism and colors green fruits and vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, bok choy, and Brussels sprouts. Next, look for red. Lycopene is the predominant pigment in reddish fruits and vegetables, and it's a really good antioxidant you're going to find in things like tomatoes, watermelon, pink grapefruit, guava, and cranberries. And then yellowish orange foods, which are high in beta-cryptoxanthin, vitamin C, and beta-carotene, all particularly good antioxidants. We're talking carrots, cantaloupe, winter squash, mangoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, and apricots. So, let's review the simple concepts that you just learned. Inflammation makes you fat. Your first strategy to fight inflammation would be to consume foods that are low in the glycemic index. Now, eating anti-inflammatory foods in the form of omega-3 fatty acids and darkly colored fruits and vegetables are the second strategy. Just put those two strategies together, low glycemic foods, along with high consumption of omega-3s and darkly colored fruits and vegetables, and you can watch the fat melt off your body. Assuming you're, of course, moving and exercising too. Now, if you have more questions, comments, or feedback about these strategies, then feel free to visit the show notes over at quickanddirtytips.com. Look for this episode number 332, or join the conversation over at facebook.com/getfitguy. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.